3 days before her visa expired, Therese went to the Thai immigration. She was alone, she had no family, and she had no one else to bring. She was born in Zamboanga and she grew up in Saudi Arabia. And then she moved to Thailand, all alone. No job offer, nothing. And when I heard about how Therese got to Thailand and now how she's living here, I knew I had to sit down with her for an interview. So today, let's listen to Therese, her story of a Filipina who came here to Thailand with nothing but her faith. Hello everyone, welcome back to the vlog. Today I have a special guest. Her name is Therese. Hello Therese.
Hello everybody, and thank you so much for having me, Jamrel.
So Therese here is a Filipina, but she grew up abroad and now she's here in Bangkok. Is that correct?
Yes, we are in my room.
Yes. So thank you for hosting me, for having me in your room.
No, absolutely. And you're also going to see her in other episodes as well, because I'll be sharing with you later on where you'll see her.
Yes. Okay, so Therese, take us back as a Filipina who grew up abroad. Tell us, where did you grow up in, and what was that like for you?
Okay, so just to give you a background, hello my fellow Filipinos. I'm from Zamboanga City, so I'm Chavacano, which is the Spanish Creole language that is found in that area. And because of my parents both being migrants, my father is a computer engineer and my mother is a nurse. They were both stationed in Riyadh city in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And there, from when I was 3 years old, they brought me to that land where I was able to study in their system. But all throughout those 12 years that I was there, it was 12 years. It was 9 years rather. It was 9 years up until when I was 12, when I graduated elementary. That was when I then came back to the Philippines to go study for my high school there. So all throughout that time, those 9 years, it was, in one sentence, it was just staying in my room. If you're a fellow Saudi kid like me, and during those times as well, it was more restrictive. There were more rules, especially for children and more especially for females. So you cannot go out without any adult or without any man, especially, or else, bad things can happen with you. The best thing about being a Saudi kid is that we have unlimited internet.
Okay, good Wi-Fi, good signal, good everything.
As well as time, as well as, free aircon. So if you have free air conditioning, free Wi-Fi, you wouldn't really need to go out. Yeah, so that's also one of the reasons why I think a lot of Saudi kids wouldn't really have this inclination towards playing sports outside, or because we were really cooped up in our rooms. And I was also an only child.
How did growing up in Saudi Arabia, I guess, mold you?
I think one thing that really changed me was, because we're mostly indoors, we focus more on what's available with us. So it's the internet and also like books, like here, as you can see.
You were mostly alone. Your parents were working. So like, who took care of you when you were a kid? Were you mostly just alone at home, or did you have like yaya or like someone, like an adult with you?
I think they left me at daycares before. That was when I was in, before they had prep. So it was KG1, KG2, but I think this is KG2 now, right? It's kindergarten, then preparatory, then grade 1. But that was in my time. And then now it's KG1, KG2, and then something else. So they usually left me at daycare centers.
Aside from growing up in a place with a different culture, also very isolated, how did you handle that? Because I know that as for other Filipinos as well, third culture kids, diba, like Filipinos who grew up abroad, there is that sense of isolation, like you are alone. How did you deal with that as a kid?
So I was actually bullied. I was bullied a lot, not by my Filipino classmates. I was also quite I was a fighter.
Oh, I love that. Ikaw yung nanununtok na bata.
Parang ganun.
Ano pala to guys? Strong. Ingat kayo.
Yeah, I had a temper, which is not good, of course. But yeah, I had a temper, so they were like, "Oh, you like don't mess with me." That kind of aura. With isolation, to be honest, I'm gonna be fully transparent with you. I really didn't feel alone. I was enjoying my own time or myself at that time. Or maybe that's one interpretation, but maybe also because since that's my environment,
You got used to it
I
already.
got used to it. But then I only realized after when I came back to the Philippines, how it is to be with around people. When I went here in Thailand, that's when I realized, oh, this is loneliness.
What do you do now here in Thailand?
I'm currently a faith-based content creator slash coach as well. So I am building my platform where I could help other Thai speakers or non-native speakers like me to develop their English language skills, but also to find their own purpose. So identify their God-given mission, because I think that similar to how God had guided me and He shared with me and blessed me with the tools on how to learn, to discern, I would like to share that and use this platform to reach more people, because I think a lot of the problems that a lot of young professionals and young adults have is the capacity to discern, is this the right one for me? Right? Is this the right course for me? Is this the right relationship for me? Is this the right country for me? Because we're not gonna lie, a lot of it sounds good on paper, but is it best for you? Is it best fit for what God has planned for you? And so that's how the Lord had put it in my heart to start a podcast, which is My Holy Hill. And that's where you'll see.
Also, I'll put the link to her podcast in the description box below. So if you guys need more guidance on your faith as well, or if you have any questions about coming here to Thailand based on Therese's experience, then please go ahead and check out her channel.
Yes, and in terms of more help, I think her channel has more more tactical help, especially with getting the visa, getting more important documents. And I think every migrant worker can connect with this, and that is the difficulty that we have to overcome, just so that we can finally have that security that comes with having a long-term visa. It's hard. I even got to a point where I on a tourist visa for 2 months, and then I have to go out of the country again 2 months. That was last year in 2025. So yeah.
But now you have your visa.
Yes.
Praise
so
God.
I'm good. Thank you, Lord.
Now, on to your content creator path, because you said now you had a podcast and
Yes.
you felt called to it. So can you tell us more about how you started the YouTube channel? Like, why did you start it?
I have worked in the educational system of Thailand for around 4 to 5 years already, with 2 years being spent as a student. But I was exposed to a lot of the factors that comes with being a student and being a teacher here. And I've learned that there's so many things that needed to be improved in the educational system. It's okay, it's doing well right now, but it's still not serving the students as much as it could have. And I found that YouTube is one platform where you can technically learn anything. But this time, I wanted to connect it with something that's deeply lacking with the curriculum, and that is, well, for one, etiquette, good morals, and right conduct. That's one subject that we had when we were growing up, but I don't think that they removed it in the Philippines. And also the capacity to just connect with your spiritual self, and for Catholics here. My platform is primarily right now a space for bearing witness to the goodness of the Lord. Because what we as evangelists can do is simply to share how the Lord had saved you. And the Lord had saved me so many times. I tell you not. I kid you not. He was the one who keeps me here, to be honest. Without His help, I would not be here right now, especially with my precarious situation being a tourist for the whole time when I was in 2025. And also even finding good jobs. I also wanted my platform to be a space where fellow migrant workers here in Thailand can speak up about their experiences and also promote their own careers, because I feel that a lot of us Filipino workers here are not compensated fairly. Yes, unfortunately, if you know, or if you're already here, you know that different nationalities are paid better. But some instances, in some schools, they do pay you fairly, but it's not as common as it should be. I think that if we want a better life for our future Filipinos coming here, it's necessary that you at least know what you're getting into and prepare well, because sometimes a lot of it can break people as well. So that's why I started my Holy Hill. It's a space where you can bear witness and also just connect, because that's also one thing that we lack. We lack connection. Everyone's just on their phones right now, not really having the deep conversations that we have or should have as Filipinos or as human beings. And that's why I'm really thankful for Jemrel. Thank you for accepting.
And I really love how you have that mission, that you're speaking up about this. And of course, you have a YouTube channel. That in itself is already nerve-wracking, you know, like putting yourself out there. People just seeing you and you talking, and a lot of anonymous people can come and comment anytime. How do you deal with that fear?
Actually, I struggled with it so much and I didn't know about it. So that's another thing. Like a while ago when you pointed out that the Lord showed me through the process that I had a hearing difficulty. So through the process of showing me like, hey, I want you to use YouTube or use social media to talk about me or to talk about our faith and all of your experiences, I learned that I actually had a fear of being seen, or the fear of man. It's that's what you call it. And that is deeply rooted in, I think, one, my childhood, and also the culture where I was exposed to a lot of criticisms, not constructive, unfortunately. So, you know, one wrong thing and you're like, oh, that's so bad, etc., etc. Yes. And that's why I have also learned that I was a perfectionist. I didn't know. But yeah, that's also one thing that resulted from that. And I struggled a lot because, for one, I think one of the things that actually helped me first is that I thought, nobody's gonna watch, you know, so it's okay, I can just be myself. And then I learned, they're watching.
Yeah, there will be people watching.
They watch me, and then they'll talk to me about it. Like, hey, I saw this. I was like, oh, you watch? And that was kind of unorthodox and paradoxical, because, you know, you post and then I think some people post in hopes of being seen. And then I learned that I didn't want to be seen, not just because of, you know, fear of being judged, I guess, but also just because I was at that part or at that point in my life where I had a lot of healing to go through when it comes to my identity. I thought that my worth as a person was attached to my achievements. Or how much I'm earning, or how much I'm helping other people. It's basically, my worth was based on how happy I made you. So it was varied. It was unstable. So if you were not happy with me, then I thought I don't deserve to live. Yeah, and of course to be on YouTube.
Yes, just so many people, and I totally get, especially the fear of being seen, because I had that before when I was like starting my channel, when I was trying to grow my channel, because there will come a time when you will reach like a ceiling and you keep posting and you keep doing things and it just doesn't work. I really had to do a lot of digging as well, and then I saw lots of videos about confidence and all that until I found this content creator, and she was talking about the fear of being famous, and it's actually rooted in our psychology, right? Because when we were in our primitive years, going against the pack or doing something different, being seen as like going above, would mean that you are different and you would become an outcast. When we are like doing something different that will be perceived as an outcast, our nervous system, our body tells us to stop doing that because you need to fit in, or else you'll be out of the pack and you will not be protected by society. And so that is something that I had to learn internally and had to work through. Yeah, if you're doing content creation, this in itself already, talking to a camera and putting yourself out there is already something different that a lot of people will not do. So if you are achieving something, if you want to do something great, if you want to be the top 5% in the world, you can't act like the rest of the 95%, and you can't expect your life to be like the rest of the 95%. You're just gonna be different, and you will have to accept that. So yeah, I think it's really brave what you're doing.
Thank you, and you too.
And right now, what keeps you going with your content creation? Because you told me you had a lot of fears. Like you of course, you struggle so much, and you're talking about things that are different, right? Especially with the human rights thing and the difference in the salaries. What keeps you going?
One of the quotes that I remember for this question is, if you want something different, you have to do it differently. I think, I'm sorry, don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. So if you want to change your life, you basically have to change the way you do things. And I learned that in my years of teaching here, that I don't want to stay in the same spot, because it's very hard actually for you to live a life of financial abundance working at the same rate that they pay you here. It's good for experience, I would say. It helps you broaden your network, your horizons, and yeah, just living in a different country has a lot of benefits. But I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to be able to travel, to learn more, to do more, and to experience more, because I do lean towards my sector of human rights and entrepreneurship. I wanted to be able to make an impact with what the Lord had given me. And that's why I had chosen the pathway of content creation, specifically in podcasting, because I believe that a lot of the stories should be heard. It should be recorded, it should be heard, and people should know, like, hey, you're not alone. You're not alone when you're facing this struggle, when you have mental health issues, when you have financial difficulties. You're not alone in doing that. And there are people here who have overcome that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really like how, you created this platform, you opened it up for people who need to see that they're not alone, and that you're very brave to be here, to be seen, to be okay with being seen. And part of that is being okay with being judged, right? So thank you so much. Before we wrap up this interview, this vlog, what is your advice for Filipinos who want to come to Thailand, who want to work here, want to live here?
Check Google Maps. I have this very funny story. I thought there was no church here in Thailand.
Okay.
Honestly, but only, that's another story that I'm going to share in my podcast, so expect on that. But I didn't know there was Google Maps. And also, just a tip. So I traveled to Singapore one time for my birthday, and I noticed that in Singapore, things on the maps are actually closer than they seem. But in Thailand, they're farther than they seem.
Okay, interesting.
Yes. So if it says like, oh, this looks close in Thailand maps, Google Maps for, trains and buses. So especially if you're going to Thailand, travel is one of the easiest things you can do, because it's very cheap. You can definitely ride the bus. It's cheaper. And get lost a few times, because that way you'll be more familiar with the area.
Yes. I think that's really good, being mindful, understanding the location as well. So I think that's really good advice. So and thank you guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and I hope you guys learned so much from this. Bye.
Bye.